many of you listening right now would love to leave your 9 to 5 day job and have your dream job and live your dream life. That is exactly what has happened for my guest today, Debby Krusz. Like many of us, Debby felt a longing in her heart, a yearning to be, do, and have something more, to become a full-time writer and supporter of dreams everywhere. Eventually, the yearning became too great, and the hustle and bustle of life in corporate America was no longer fulfilling. She took the ultimate leap of faith, quit her job, and pursued her dream life full time. As she will tell you, she listened to the voice within that said, "Leave this place and start writing." Debby is a survivor of crushed dreams and is now on a mission to guide others in transitioning away from the 9 to 5 day job to the dream job and life. In today's episode, we'll hear her story of how she made the leap, what it takes, and how you too can make that leap if you have an inner voice that is calling you to something more, something greater than just the 9 to 5. We'll explore questions such as, how do you make that leap? How do you find the faith and courage to quit the day job? And how do you find faith when it seems impossible? Debby is a published author of Soul Meets Body, creator of the Dream Pollination Project, and is a certified life, meditation, and energy healing coach. She will guide you through all the tough stuff such as finances, health, intellect, career, and spirituality on the way to quitting the 9 to 5 and living your dream life. For more information, visit her website at www.debbycrusz.com. Good morning and welcome, everyone, wherever you are in the world on this absolutely wonderful, beautiful day. Hopefully, it's absolutely wonderful and magnificent wherever you are. And as I always like to say, this is Coach Brad. I'm always blessed and privileged to just have the most amazing people on this podcast. And today is no different. So today we have coming to us from New York, Debby Krusz. Debby, thank you so much for being here. Welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you, Brad, for having me. I am doing well. Thank you so much. It is a beautiful day out today, so always makes me feel good.
Yeah. Weather. It's funny how weather kind of just always makes our mood sometimes or breaks our mood or whatever. But yeah, it's always nice when it's a beautiful day. So Debby, you have an absolutely amazing story that I think a lot of people are going to get something out of because you've literally done the 9 to 5 / corporate America to the dream life. And people are going to look at this and say, well, what did she do? And how did she do it? And how can I do that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that are kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but that's probably the best word, that are stuck in the 9 to 5, that like you dream of something more, something bigger, something better, and are just, how do we do it? How do I go? So Debby, have at it. Spill the beans. Take us back to the beginning where you were in corporate America, what you were feeling, what it was like, and how you were able to transition out into living what you call your dream life now.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it does always feel like there's a dream on your heart and it seems impossible. And there's always people around you that are like, oh, I always wish I did that, or that didn't happen, so forget it, it's over, there's no other chance. And I believe that because there was people around me that lived in the regret, and it was very upsetting. I was told my dream was go to a good college, get a great job. You're going to make money and money's going to make you happy. And you're going to get a great title and that's going to make you happy. And I was like, yeah, this sucks. Can I go back to waitressing? Bartending was so much more fun.
Yeah.
And I didn't love it. I mean, at the beginning when you're young and, I was an early 20 something, and it's like, you're going to get a job in Manhattan. And it's like, yay, I'm going to go to Manhattan every day. And then when you have to, I had to drive, but the times I had to take the train, it felt so glamorous to, get up early in the morning. And then, when the time changes and it's cold and miserable and rainy and super windy standing on that platform, it's not so glamorous anymore. And, you get to work and the fun of it is not glamorous. And you're like, I'm moving a piece of paper from here to here. this is not very fulfilling for me anymore. And then, you make your first mistake and, you think the world has ended for you. And, you go through all of those, and some people love that and triumph, and this is their dream, and great for them. It wasn't me. I kept moving my way up the ladder until I got what I felt was the highest point of being at a C level. And I could not have been more miserable. The stress, the anxiety, the decisions you had to make were very hard. And a lot of times the decisions were already made for you, and you had to still go through the process of, this is what I think it's right. It's like, that's great. We're not going that route. And guess what? You get to tell everybody about it. Got to go by. You think you're at the highest, and there's always somebody higher than you. So those were not great moments. And I just came to a place where I realized in my life, I was going to die. I was going to die doing this. I didn't recognize the person who I was in the mirror. I I didn't like the choices and decisions I was making. I was isolating myself because I was working so many hours. A lot of my jobs, I was on the road most of the week.
Oh,
So
wow.
you lost a lot of time with your friends. Miss out on family events and friend events. And you come home and you're like, I'm really alone. I'm really alone here. And I don't know what it is that I thought getting here was going to be better, because what I really want is to be with my family, to be with my friends, to be enjoying life. And I thought that money was going to be the answer, but it was the enemy. So I just prayed on it, and I was like, God, I feel like I'm going to die. I feel like I'm going to die doing this. This anxiety will just take me out. And I heard a voice not that long after that said, you got to go. You have to leave this job, and you need to start writing, and just don't worry. I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. And then there were so many times that God had spoke to me in my life, and I told him no, because when you say it to other people that haven't had that experience, they're like, well, just that's crazy. And you're like, yeah, must be crazy. What does he know? And this time I was like, well, I asked you for something. You distinctly spoke to me. And this time I don't feel I'm going to lose anything but gain my life by listening. So I listened and I left, and I wrote 3 books in 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I didn't really know what to do with them. I did get them published. But I didn't know enough about that world. And I, what I'm trying to get at is, it wasn't this huge generator of income that made me
Right.
feel like, it's like, all right, God, I did it. That's great. Thank you.
Where's the
Um,
money?
I need to pay some bills, so I decided again to take the message into my own hands and started to do consulting work. Every project that I had, some dead end kept coming. And, I was like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. And I didn't listen. And I was miserable again. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? Because I'm not listening to God. And just last year, I realized that the message was to keep writing. And did you hear another message? No. So
Well, let me real quick, Debbie, back up a second. So you were COO of a hospital, correct? So
yes.
COO, Chief Operating Officer, that's pretty, I mean, that's high up the ladder, I guess, so to speak. So not only were you in corporate America, you were what we would call successful in corporate America, then the stable job and the income. And is that was it the job itself that was driving your stress and anxiety, or was there more going on, or?
Yeah, I wasn't there to be there forever. I was there to kind of do some cleanup work, stand in and figure out, was I going to stay or not. So I didn't go into it to that exact position, because that was going to be forever, and I was going to stay there for so many years. It was determined of, this is not going to be forever. It was only going to be a short term. And, I thinking, either I'm going to stay here longer or I'm going to find a new job with that title. It was the stress. It was not exactly all that convenient to get to either.
Oh.
And there was a lot of turmoil going on. Now, all of those factors definitely pushed me over the edge. But at the same time, I went into it already knowing in my heart that it was not the right job. I jumped on it because, again, I was living in, wow, look at the dollar signs. Wow, look at that fancy title. And if I've gotten this far and I haven't been happy, if this isn't going to make me happy, then that's it. Like that in my head, I just sort of saw like, if this isn't it, then there's a dark black wall and that's where you're going to walk into. Which at the end of the day, yes, did something in me die? Yeah. That person that had all those thoughts and feelings of that was the right way to go. So I had that piece of me died when I made that choice to leave because I wasn't feeding it anymore. And so I did have a rebirth of who I should be, what my soul mission is, and really get that time to understand it. So I do feel like, yeah, I my visions and feelings were right of, yeah, I was going to die if I stayed, but I stayed for a little bit more. And then all of a sudden I parted ways with the old me and the new me into two different worlds. So,
So
um,
let me jump in real quick and ask you about that, Debbie, because that's huge that you were able to part ways with the old you and start down the new you. That takes faith, it takes courage. You mentioned you heard a voice, like an inner calling, listening to your heart. How were you able to make that leap? How were you able to find the faith, find the courage to go from 9 to 5 to start following your calling to be a writer?
well, when I heard the voice, it was a familiar voice. And again, I had heard it many times before. And the most distinct that I can remember was a relationship that I was like, I shouldn't get into this relationship. And there was a distinct voice of, no, don't go there. Don't do that. I'm like, no, I'm diving right in. I'm going right in for it. And it was not, it was, I shouldn't have gone into it, but you learn a lot and you move on. Yeah, it is a leap of faith. And at that point, I needed to do something different because I was in that insanity loop of
Oh,
continuing to chase the same thing that just kept kicking me in the teeth. And I was like, I'm going back for more. I'm going back for more. I didn't know how to break my cycle. I didn't know how to break that insanity cycle. And now what I do with teaching people how to get themselves out of that is it is what I call the dream cycle. And part of it is the dream crushing phase. And that's where you kind of get stuck. And it could be a good excuse. It could be, I'm not ready to move on. I don't know what it looks like. I'm going in for another loop. And you can get really stuck there, and so many people do, and it is just a cloud of dust. But there is that choice and decision you have within yourself of, do I want to continue in this loop, or am I ready for change? And even just having that conversation, repeating those words in whatever that looks like for you, changes you into a new cycle. And it's very simple to, if you want to test out the theory, there's very, very simple things to do. I like to use one example of music. So we all have a song that comes on and you're like, oh, I like this song. And you get excited and you're like, I want to hear that song again. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, I can't listen to this song anymore. Like, enough. Like, I'm done. And I like to recognize that of, when you get to that place of, I'm really sick of this song right now, like I need to get rid of it. You've evolved. You've moved on in your circle. So there's the old you and the new you's like, I'm really over this. Like, I'm over it. So it's your choice of, the voice inside of me is saying, I'm over it. Let's go to a new song. Or are you going to press repeat and listen to it again?
right.
And that's just a really small, easy task to say, oh my gosh, I've definitely started a new circle. It's the same with, do you order the same thing for lunch every day? I mean, ham and cheese to me is the greatest lunch ever, but there are days where I'm like, I don't know that I can eat it again. Am I going to just make the sandwich anyway? Or am I going to be like, let's go out and have pizza? And that is another moment of I broke the cycle. I'm entering in a new cycle. And if you look at it that way, of those little things that you like, oh wow, I did this. Oh wow, I did this. Those are signs that there's an old piece of you that walked away, and there's a new piece of you that's like, how about pizza with hot honey? You know, you're like, who am I right now? This is amazing. Why? Who thinks of hot honey on pizza? Let's go for it. Ham and
Sounds
cheese,
good.
you're done. I'm over with you. So it is a leap of faith, but if you're paying attention to yourself and the little tiny cycles that you think are not significant, and you see how you change, you could see how those little changes push you to the bigger changes. And those are all cycle changes of old you leaving and new you coming in. So when you feel those things, feed yourself with the new things. Feed yourself with goodness. Feed yourself with, I really want to do something new in my life, something I've always dreamed of. Well, what is it? But when you know what it is and you're not ready, you go back to ham and cheese.
And so there must have been a time, because to take that leap of faith, you were giving up a major source of income and security. So there must have been a time, even after you made the leap, where, stress and anxiety and fear kind of snuck in. How did all that play out, and how did you handle all that? Because now you are a successful published author and coaching others on living their dream life. So, but there had to be a little bit of growing pains there, I imagine.
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, slightly, huh?
Not that easy to go from making a really nice salary to being a starving artist. I
Yeah.
don't recommend following that route, but I do recommend building a solid plan. Thankfully, I had made some good choices in my life with savings and investments and being able to
No.
work with all of that. And I always tell people, part of the dream cycle and dream crushing is, don't leap into that. Guess what? I had this vision. I'm going to quit my job today and it's going to be fabulous. I just know it. That seems and feels like what I'm saying. And no, there was a plan. I did have a plan. I did go into it with, I had some consulting work lined up. And I knew that I was going to do some writing because I didn't know what writing was going to look like. I also did have savings to fall back on just in case. And luckily I did, because the consulting work didn't work out. Like none of those jobs that I had lined up worked out.
No.
And the writing worked out. And then once I started doing the writing, then it was like, oh, don't forget about where you were putting money into this savings account. Maybe, you can use that, right? And it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I could do that. I knew I had savings here, but that savings where you're like, don't look at it, pretend it's not there, because I don't want to dip into it. But I once I started writing and really going my true self, the avenues started to open. And once I was like, oh no, I'm good with the writing, that I fulfilled the mission, and I was like, I'm going to do other work, the doors closed. So I did have a plan, and I didn't always stick to it. And those are the times where I got jabbed. I went off course for my own reasons. I don't think any of it is bad. I think it's part of the cycle of learning. You're on a mission to do this, complete this, and those avenues are not right for you today. So I always tell people to have a solid plan of what it's going to look like and be very realistic with it. Doors will open, there is faith in there, but be well rounded to be in your dream. So make sure that you have financial security. You know what your finances are going to look like for the next 3 to 6 months. In this economy, I would say a minimum of 6 months.
Mm.
Be able to know what it looks like and know what you need to do to bring in the dollars while you're in this avenue of, if you're leaving your career, knowing what that's going to look like. I also if you're going to leave, you have to be mentally and physically and spiritually ready, because if you're going to go to a job and it's going to be physically demanding and you're overweight and you haven't um, can't run from here to the door without catching your breath, you're not going to actually be able to perform in a job that's at a high performance. If you don't look the part, no one's going to want to hire you. If you don't feel good, it's going to be hard to wake up every day. It's going to be hard to give that high energy. When you start something new, you want to give it your best and be at high energy. Are you mentally ready to change gears? Are you mentally ready and prepared for what your next thing is, what your next dream is? Because if you can't feel it and be mentally in there, in that space,
So
you're not
let's,
going to
yeah,
perform.
let's real quick. So let's say I'm not mentally ready or even financially ready, but I'm absolutely miserable at the 9 to 5 and I'm dreaming about leaving and quitting and becoming a published author or whatever that dream is. What would you say to someone like me in that situation? I was like, oh, Debbie, I only got a month worth of savings but I'm just miserable. And what do I do? How do I find that peace or happiness? How do I follow my dream?
Yeah, so that is like prime example, which is perfect, because the first thing most people say is, I can't because I don't have the money, or I don't know how to save money. I don't have enough. Money is always one of the first things that happen. So that is part of the plan of, okay, well, what does your writing look like? What is you want to be an author of a novel? Okay, great. So what does it look like? Do you have an outline together? Because if you think you're just going to, oh, I'm going to make all these plans and I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to write, but I don't know what I'm writing about. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't have any of that together. That's going to take you some time to get to that piece of the writing. So in the meantime, you have work to do. I always say work in a place of gratitude. So today, actually, one of my posts I post every day, like a tip to get closer to your dreams, is appreciation. So appreciate today, right now, you have a job. You have a job. It pays your bills. It doesn't make you happy, but it is an avenue that is going to get you to your next job. So appreciate that. And then I, always tell people to look at what your finances are. Now, I don't need to know what your finances are. I can just help you put them in the right place. And there's lots of avenues to see where you're spending ridiculously excessively, how to reduce a lot of your bills. There's lots of options out there of how you can decrease your debt, consolidate some of your credit cards, lower some of your bills. There's lots of options out there. So if you're already spending that money, let's just say you're gonna save $100 a week just by doing those simple tasks. You already have that in your budget. So take that $100 and put it into savings. And I did this with a couple that wanted to buy a vacation home. And it was like, forget it. On our salary, the kids and all this drama, and there's no way we could put money for this house. So I always say, you start small. You got to put in the work and show the energy out there that you're serious about this. And it is starting small. So get $50 in the bank. Great, you have $50. Well, why don't you open a savings account? There's money market accounts. There's all sorts of accounts depending on what you need. Then take that $50 and put it in a savings account. And then when you get to $100, get excited. Can you add a little bit extra to put into that account? Get to $500. Can you take 300 of that dollars and start investing it? Just start building your portfolio very small. And, every time you're doing it, I am so grateful that this job gave me these extra dollars to put towards my vacation job, my vacation home. And just keep giving it gratitude of, I'm so excited. I can't wait to have our first barbecue in their vacation home. Give it gratitude, talk to it
Give it
as if it's
energy.
already
Yeah.
yours. It's yours.
Yeah.
So the dream job would be the same of, this is getting me to the avenue of being able to be a best-selling author. I all of a sudden have an outline together for what my book looks like. I'm going to start to put it together. I'm going to start focusing on it. And sometimes for being an author, you might just be able to take a little chunk off of time from work. there's lots of options of, can I take a month off because there's something I really need to work on? Because once you get a book out there, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. So if you want to pitch to publishers, if you want to pitch to agents, that takes a lot of time. And it could be months, it could be years, it could be tomorrow, but you really have to prepare of that. There's a lot of dead silence. So you may not want to leave your job if you're going to be an author right away. Maybe it's staying and looking at where you are at your job while you're working on that. So it's a lots of planning and really thinking it out of what it fully looks like, and not necessarily the answer is just jump and leave your job and start writing, and it's all going to come together. Although, that does happen, but that's not the suggested plan.
Yeah, real quick, that reminds me a metaphor. I'm a run coach, and I always, teach kind of what you're describing as baby steps. Have a plan and baby steps. And had a friend many years ago. He wanted to be a runner, and I always teach. Well, let's start out with like quarter of a mile, go to half a mile, a mile and a half. I had a friend who didn't do any of that. He went out never having ran at all in his entire life. First day he ran 2 miles. He lived in the country and ran basically to his mailbox and back, which was 2 miles round trip. Couldn't walk for 5 days because he was so sore. But then a week later, he signed up for an ultra marathon, 60 miles, and did it with basically, yeah, exactly, with no training or not. So yeah, it's what you're saying is the common logic sense. Hey, let's do it that way, the safe way. But there are people out there who just take that giant leap. You can do the baby steps or giant leap. So it's whatever kind of works for you, I guess, and your fancy. Let me ask you another thing, Debbie, that I really drew my attention from your bio. You said, you asked, how do you find faith when it seems impossible?
Yes. I think we all go through that place of it seems and feels impossible. I actually had a conversation last night. I went to see a speaker with a few friends, and they were struggling with their children having faith. Mm-hmm. And, like, why don't they believe in all, if they just ask God to help them, then God would be there. And it's like, well, they don't see it. They can't see their miracles. They can't feel it. And everybody has to come to their own moment. And there is a conditioning of it, of how do you look at things, right? And I still look back and say, oh my gosh, those things were miracles, and how I just did not appreciate them or spoke negatively about it. How dare that happen to me? And I did tell them a story of one of my godchildren. She turned out that she has diabetes that I couldn't tell you what form it is, but I know she can't survive without getting like very often insulin shots and has to wear the little tool. I'm so sorry, I'm not well versed in
No, I know what you're talking about, like that little insulin indicator patch type thing. Yeah.
Yes. So, it was just a fluke of she just was losing weight, and she was really tiny to begin with, and they had to weigh another daughter for a competition that she had where you have to get weighed. I think it's like part of like the ultimate fighting challenge. And they're like, oh, just for fun, let's just weigh her and see. And they know that's when they started to notice like her weight was going up and going down and going up and going down. And you're like, is it something? Is it not something? And they just decided, oh my goodness, we're going to just take her to the doctor and find out what's going on. And they took her there, and the doctor's like, oh my God, she's going to go into a diabetic coma. You have to get her to the emergency room. So they raced her to the hospital, and whatever treatment she needed. And they had no idea. They didn't know, it was not an indication before. And there was the anger of, like, if there's God, why would God have this? And, how this is a child, and, there's all the anger. And then, we all build up of like, what else went wrong? Like, God isn't with me. God isn't here. And I'm like, it's easy for me to look from the outside to say this, but once you start changing your mindset to look to the inside, it always happens with a tragic moment like this, right? Of, I know you're angry, and I get it, and I can understand how you feel that way, but look at the blessings. If you didn't take her, if you didn't weigh her because you thought you just were doing it for fun, then you started to notice her weight fluctuating. You took her to the doctor. The doctor was like, get her to the hospital because something's going to happen right now. Like, you don't have a lot of time. It's going to happen right now. You got her to the doctor, you got her to the hospital. She got the treatment she needs. She has good parents that, make sure she's taken care of. You wake up 3 times a night to make sure her insulin is okay. And she's living her life, and she's okay with it. So you don't know what the rest of her life looks like. Maybe she's going to become a doctor and want to cure this, and want to help other children and other families. And just the fact that you're helping other people by, living in the example, there's a lot of good things that happen, even though it seems like this is a horrible thing that happened to your daughter. But there are miracles here, and look at it that way of, although this is horrible, it could have, she was on her way to not be here if we didn't act from within. And acting from within is your faith of, I don't feel there's something wrong with my daughter, and I know I need to do something. So it's sort of looking at people's stories and being able to dissect them. And they may not want to listen to you at that moment because they're dismissed and they're angry, and oh, but once you just think of the mindset of, okay, well, I can now walk away from this and look back and say, okay, this happened, and what can I take good out of it? What good things came out of it?
Yeah.
And that's not always
Look for the
easy. And
blessing.
it's helpful when somebody doesn't know you to be able to walk through that journey with you to say, but what happened? But what happened? And when you're having the conversation with somebody and just asking the right questions of, so then what happened? So then what happened? Well, where are we now? And then be able to have them see it for themselves of, oh my goodness, I didn't notice that, or I didn't see it that way. And if you follow that journey, you see how it came full cycle. And then you look at when you're in the phase you're in now, looking back, you look at the cycle of, okay, so, there's all this movement. What should I do? You see how there's like these key things that come, you get like for jobs, and for instance, you get the low-lying fruit of the calls of like, oh yeah, we have this great job for you, it's wonderful. And then you're like, oh, that's one of those smoke and mirror jobs that's sort of like the robocalls. And then you get those good interviews that you're like, oh, that job would be great, and then it doesn't work out. And then you get the silence, and then all of a sudden you're like the doubt of, oh, it's not going to happen, I'm never going to get a job again. And like, you're pitching your tent in the park all of a sudden, getting ready, and then the phone rings, and it's just like, you worked with so and so, and we think you're fabulous, we want to hire you. And you're like, so when you're in those
That
phases,
just happened to me literally a couple days ago too. Yeah.
right? So you see
Yeah.
that cycle, and I'm like, and I'm at a place where, I'm like, oh my God, I know that this is the cycle. And what's funny is, back to the food analogy, it's like, when I'm going for a bacon, egg, and cheese, like in the mornings, like that's, like that good gooey dripping all down your hand sandwich in the morning. I'm like, I know when I want that every day this week, I know like next week that call is coming because it's part of your cycle. You see the little pieces of your cycle of, okay, this is close to the end. All right, it's coming. I know it's coming. And it's amazing how you just have to watch your cycles and stay in it and be like, this is the silence. I can get through the silence. I can get through the silence. I know I can do it. And just put your trust in that silence of, there's dust, it's clouds of dust, and I'm walking through the clouds of dust, and I can get to the other side. I've done this before. I've been here. I just had the bacon, egg, and cheese. That means that call is coming. Everybody has their own thing. But if you, as funny as it sounds, go and test out the theory and see exactly what it is. And you said it just happened. So it's proven
It
theory.
did, literally. Yeah, it's crazy how life works. Debbie, I want to thank you for being here today. I know you've got a website and books and coaching programs. How can people learn more about you? Where can they find you? All of that good stuff.
Yes, I try to keep it simple. So my website is debbykrusz.com, and that is DEBBYKRUSZ.com. You could book a call with me. I'd love to do a discovery call with you to get you closer to your dreams. I also, you could purchase my books there. I'm on social media. I try to, again, keep it simple at Debby Krusz at all the popular platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest. I think that's everything. I
And I'll
think I
definitely
can.
put links to all of that in the show notes. And I think, yeah, DebbyKrusz.com is probably a little easier than Debbie Kruzewski, if I got that right.
Yes, but if you put that in there, it'll go straight to my website. But
Oh,
Debby
okay.
Krusz is much,
Okay.
much easier to find. So yes.
Remember that, yeah. Well, Debbie, for the good of the order, you've said a lot of good stuff today. Before we sign off here, is there anything else that you haven't said that you would like to add right here at the very end?
I just want to let everybody know that you're here for a sole purpose and you are divinely made, and your dreams are yours. They belong to you. And I know you can make it happen. And I can't wait to hear your stories.
That's wonderful. Debbie, thank you again very much for being here. And for anyone listening, thank you also for being here. As I always say, I definitely appreciate you being here. The Be Well, Be Safe, Be Happy, Eat Ice Cream podcast would not exist without you, the listener. So, again, thank you. If you like what you have heard today, please do me a solid and share this episode far and wide. Give Debbie a shout out on her website, and as well, hit that subscribe button wherever you do listen to podcasts and leave me that 5-star review. I would super appreciate that. Again, thank you so much for being here. And Debbie, again, thank you for being here. And as I always like to say at the end, until next time, this is Coach Brad. Be well, be safe, be happy, eat ice cream. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.